All right, welcome to Workout Wednesday 2022 week 24. We're going to take a look at the Arctic ice extent, how it's been trending since the 1990s. We're going to do this with one sheet and we're going to create a horizon chart. So I'm just going to open this in Tableau Public so we can take a look at what I have here, and we're going to sort of make this chart. It's going to be broken out by decade, and then its number of days in each decade on the x-axis here. And first, I'm going to dive into the data. I'm going to show you how horizon chart is, sort of the characteristics of it, and then I'm going to make it. And that's going to be our process here for today. So first of all, let's just go into Tableau. Let's visualize the data. I've actually created that visualization to start here. We have that sort of this trend that we can see in the data, but it's hard to understand the trend because the peaks and the valleys are so high and so low. So that's why horizon chart works so well. And we're going to normalize this data to go from the maximum value to 0. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new calculated field. And I'm going to call this, let's call it NH underscore norm. And this is going to be the normalized Northern Hemisphere ice extent. And then we're just going to say max NH. And that's our key value here. So I'm going to just double click and replace NH with NH norm. You can double click, enters the value, and there we see our values are normalized. We just look that highest value came early on, 1979 in this data set. Remember, we're only going to look in the 90s, so we're going to apply a filter so it applies to the 90s, but it looks like 1990 is going to be that maximum number eventually here. So let's just take our date field, by the way. We'll add a filter, range of dates, and we're going to say starting date 1/1/1990, and I'm going to hit OK here, and then I'm just going to right click and add that to context so we can see now 1, 2 is our highest value, and our lowest value, by the way, is about just over 0.2 in terms of that value normalized. So what does this actually look like? What does a horizon chart look like? Well, we're going to have 5 levels, and basically the values from 0 to 0.2 are going to be colored red. From 0.2 to 0.4 are going to be a lighter red. Then 0.4 to 0.6 is going to be this white color, and then 0.6 to 0.8 will be light blue, and then dark blue for the highest values. And by the way, the highest values here represent the largest ice extent, and the lowest value represents the least amount of ice remaining. So that's sort of our thinking about this. So technically, at the worst point, we're still 20% of the ice relative to this highest point over here. I know it's a long explanation to sort of set this up, but it'll be really useful when we're creating this chart. So what I'm going to do is I've actually done this a number of different ways along the way. But I think this one will make sense just because it'll make the visuals look nice. So I'm going to just call this my first layer. And my first layer is just going to say if and only if that NH norm value is less than 0.2, then let's show that NH norm value, otherwise 0.2. And I'm going to close parentheses that. So that's my first layer. I'm going to hit OK. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do let me create a couple of these so that we can actually make it useful. You know what? Let's just do this. I'm going to take measure names, measure values, add it over to text here, and I'm going to drop the NH value. And you'll sort of see these two values rolling through. Let's change this to an area chart. And yeah, it looks kind of funny, but what I'm going to do is come into analysis, and this is really important. Go to stack marks. I'm going to turn that off. And now you'll see there's my 0.2 value and the rest of my unnormalized values. And let's just take measure names and add that to color. That'll help us out in the design of this chart when we're actually going to look at it. So there we go, finally loaded up. And maybe I'll just put first layer on the bottom here, and it'll be this blue, I think. Let's see here, add some opacity in there. Okay, let's swap those out. We want it sitting on top. All right, so that's my 0.0 to 0.2. You'll see it's all blue. My next layer, I'm actually just going to go to my first layer and right click and duplicate. And we're going to call this our second layer. And our second layer is going to go from 0.2 to 0.4. And in fact, I'm not going to worry about the fact that it goes just between those. I'm just going to say it needs to go to 0.4. So our second layer here is, if it's less than 0.4, return the norm, otherwise 0.4. I'm going to hit OK. Let's go find our second layer, and we're just going to drag and drop that in here. And you will see it colors all the way up to 0.4 of that total. And I'm going to duplicate and sort of repeat this a few times here. So I'm going to duplicate, edit, change this to third layer. There's 0.6 and 0.6. I'm just going to take third, we'll just rename this real quick. So rename, again, all I did on this third layer was change those values, rename again, I can get this, third. On that third layer, it just goes to 0.6. I'm just going to drop that in there. Once again, you will see that colored real nice, just goes to 0.6, everything below it shaded just fine. This next layer, I'm just going to do fourth and fifth here real quick. So duplicate the third. And with the third layer, we're going to create this fourth one. So I bet I can spell it right this time. Our fourth layer going to 0.8. And I'm going to hit OK here. And there's our fourth layer. Fourth layer, just bringing it in here. And you can see now, if I break this down, this is the foundations of the horizon chart. We see these colors. And in fact, I'm just going to go and I'm going to change these colors right in here. And I know there's specific colors set for this visualization, but I'm just going to use the Tableau 20 for the time being to help establish these colors. So I'm going to go say the first layer is red, light red. That's third layer. I'm just going to set this to white. Great. Fourth layer and fifth layer. Let's see how this looks. Again, blue is going to show when we had the most ice, and red is the least amount of ice, and this white is because we set that color. But more or less, these are the chunks. And now we're going to take each band and stack them on top of each other. And the way I'm going to do that is first, I'm going to double click. I'm going to get all the values to fit between 0 and 0.2. And the way I'm going to do that is with this NH norm value, I'm just going to say this value minus 0.8, because this goes from basically 0.8 to 1. So I'm going to sort of normalize those values, and you see all these values that go negative. I'm not worrying about that because I'm going to set my axis between 0 and 0.2. So for my first layer now, my second layer, I'm going to do minus 0.6, that being the minimum of that layer. Again, it's going to look a little funny down here. I'm not too concerned about that. My third layer is 0.4 because that's the bottom level point of that. And my last layer is minus 0.2 from there. So we've got all these layers. Now I'm just going to reorder these. So first layer is going to go to the bottom. Second layer, second to bottom. Third layer, third to bottom. Fourth layer, second. And we have essentially built our chart. All I just need to do here is edit this axis, fix it from 0 to 0.2. And that is our horizon chart. Now we've built out our horizon chart. We need to get this into a situation where it's fitting by decade. Let's just, cross-check. Red on the top, blue on the bottom, red on the top, blue on the bottom. Let's get this by decade. So first, calculate our decades. A couple of different ways to do this. The way that I do it is I'm going to sort of cheat along the way here. I have this year calculation already in here, and we'll just call this decade. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the floor of year divided by 10, and then I'm going to multiply it by 10. That's my decade. See if I technically drag this out here, it will show up just fine. So I'm just going to actually bring, let's make this the dimension, and we'll put it right on rows here. So see our 3 groups of decade. I'm now just going to remove NH norm, by the way, because we don't need that on our view. We kind of have this showing up the way we want. Now we need to collapse this. So we are going to do that by calculating the start of each decade. I'm going to create a calculated field called start of decade. And I'm going to say here, let's go with make date. And then we're going to put the decade 1 and 1. So it's going to be the first of the decade. I'm going to hit OK. And then we need the days into the decade. So we'll just go days into decade. And this is going to be date diff. Yeah, date diff. We're going to say day, and our start date is the start of the decade, and our date is the day. Now that we have days into decade, we can click and sort of replace this days into decade and turn that into a dimension. And look at there. Basically, from here, our chart, we can hide this axis. So uncheck show header. If I want to, I can format, remove my grid lines, my 0 lines. That gets us very close to our intended chart. Right click, uncheck show header, and then right click and format this value. Actually, I'm going to right click and format the days into decade. I'm going to change the axis, the numbers. I'm going to do custom. I think I can do something like this. Axis, let's try it on pane too. Oh, I did the wrong one. I wanted decade. That's why. So just going numbers here, custom, and then S. So there's our decades. And once again, just hide this label, and then we just need to make a dashboard, which I believe I said was something like 1200 by 400. So there it is. Just take our one sheet, bring it out on our view, hide this. Of course, I would probably want to edit my access over here, clean that up. But there you have it. There is how to format the tooltips as well, but that is essentially how to create this visualization from Workout Wednesday 2022, week 24. If you have any questions, reach out to me on Twitter. I'm at Luke Stanky. Thanks, and I'll catch you on the next one.